Welcome to the Lowdown on Ghana Web TV. This program was put together to bring out the hard truth, the facts and the fears. My name is Ni Akwe Ismail Akwe. LGBTQI plus is a topical issue in Ghana currently, and a bill has been tabled before Parliament for discussion on taking away the rights of those who practice the LGBTQI plus and also those who advocate for their rights. Today on the show, we'll be discussing the ramification of the bill if passed and what will be the next line of action of campaigners on this edition of the Lowdown. We'll be right back. You are watching the Lowdown. My name is Ni Akwe Ismail Akwe. Our guest is a human rights advocate and former director of Amnesty International Ghana. He's joining us from South Africa. We have Robert Akoto Amoafo on Zoom to discuss this issue. Welcome to the Lowdown, Robert.
Thank you for having me.
So how are you doing? How is the mood in South Africa right now?
And South Africa is calm. As you may be aware, not long ago, about 2 weeks or a week ago, there were some riots, looting, and some misunderstanding around the arrest of the former President Zuma, and also the fight of COVID-19, where, you know, in South Africa, one of the things that you will come to learn is alcohol is a very important thing to South Africans, and there was a ban on alcohol, and, you know, the rage of people and the hunger and the inequality became very, 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 very clear. And so that resulted in the looting and the misunderstanding that happened. But now we have come back to calm, and the country has gone back to, I think, level 4 of the lockdown. So we are now quite free and the atmosphere is clear.
Well, that's good to note. There's no calm in Ghana right now because a bill has been tabled in Parliament, which is the LGBTQI plus bill, which some members of Parliament are fighting against or criminalizing the LGBTQI in the country, and also all those who advocate for their rights. I know you've heard about it. I know you've expressed your displeasure with the way things are going and even the bill in its entirety. What was your mood and how did you take it when you heard about it?
Thank you very much. So first of all, when you look at the bill in itself, the bill, as I've always said, is unnecessary and not needed. Because my views are based on, one, the fact that the people drafting the bill do not understand what they are doing. I've said it time and again that a group of people who are trying to draft a bill and do not understand the issue they are drawing the law on. And for instance, if you look at how the statements that most of the proposers of the bill, especially the leader who is Sam George, the statements he makes about the LGBT community, they are all false, they are myths, they are things that general public will say. It's just like how people will talk about certain Christians, will talk about Muslims in a way that they do not understand because they do not read the Quran with them and they do not live with them. So they do not understand the issues. So for me, my first reaction was that it's unnecessary. It is just based on whims and caprice. And the idea that this member of parliament may be using this as a political tool to get himself popular and famous. And that is what I see happening in Ghana now. Just as usual as it happens in many other African countries, where politicians just pick up a group of people and especially LGBT community, because they know a lot of people will agree with them and use it as a tool for their political agenda to make themselves relevant and make themselves look popular, as if they are pushing something that is on the side of the people.
Okay.
But really, they may be using this as a political tool to make themselves popular.
We've had a lot of campaigners and human rights activists speak against the bill, and you are saying that those who push the bill, that's the MPs, especially Sam George, they don't understand the LGBTQI community. So how did you, or how could they have gone about it? Do you expect them to have a meeting with the community to see how best they could go on with this bill, or you think it didn't have to even come up in the first place?
So as you may, if you have observed, in 2019 there was a group that visited Ghana called the World Congress of Families. This is an NGO that is from the US, and they are a group of people who go to country to preach hate, and they go to country to preach patriarchy and what they believe is an evangelical thing that you're doing. They've done that in Uganda, in Nigeria, in Russia, and many other countries. If you look them up, you would see. These people are people who provide technical assistance and funding to people like Fuamini and people like and push people, parliamentarians like Sam George. These people did that with David Bahati in Uganda, and that is the same thing that is happening in Ghana with Sam George. So these people will give you all the technical assistance and give you the information, but the main aim is just to push a hate agenda. Okay. So for me, no one is right to advance any discussion around culture and tradition when it comes to sexual orientation and gender identity. We are human beings. We grow. Once we understand and appreciate the difference that has happened, we change to adapt. Before, there were LGBT people, there were gay people who lived in our communities. Because they are a minority group of people, it was not pronounced and clear. Now, technology has advanced, science has advanced, awareness has advanced, research has advanced. So clearly, we will become more aware of LGBT people than we were before. Before we started discussing this bill, there were LGBT people who were having sex. What changed in our culture? What difference did it make that two men or two women were sleeping in their room and having sex? Did it change the price of kinky or change the price of the V8 that the parliament was going to buy? So when we are talking about these things, we need to be very, very practical in our discussion. When a man and a woman stay in their room to have sex, it doesn't affect me in any way, nor does it affect you, or does it affect anybody sitting in parliament. Same, if a man and a man stay in their room, in their privacy, and they have sex, it doesn't affect anybody in any way, and therefore I think that what people do in their privacy should stay in their privacy, and no one should go about making laws to criminalize them for having sex.
Okay, so
that does not harm anybody.
Do you still stand by that entire freedom support when it comes to the part of the bill which says prescription of sex with or marriage to an animal? Do you think that as well should be allowed? I mean, people who have sex with animals, do you think that should be allowed because of the freedom you're talking about here?
I think anybody who advances such an argument is not educated, and the person is, excuse me to say, is not reasoning as a human being, as should be. Who has discussed animals in LGBT? Do animals give consent? Are animals able to say, yes, I want to do this, no, I want to do that? So why do people advance the argument about animals? Yes. It's a question. Why do people advance arguments with animals when we are talking about LGBT? I should even be answering this question.
Yes.
Because we are not talking about animals. We are talking about human beings.
So I'm just taking us
any
through,
individual, any individual who advance any discussion about animals should go into the animal kingdom and discuss animals. At this juncture, we are discussing human beings. And therefore, I want our discussion to be on human beings and not animals.
Sure, exactly. So I'm going through the bill and what it says and some of the issues that come up around it. So now to the issue of campaigners and those who advocate for the human rights of everybody, including those in the LGBTQ community. Now this bill even calls for arrests and criminal charges against such people. It's also going to affect people like you, and I know you are very concerned about it. It's also going to affect all the associations and the organizations in the country, both internal or even international, who are all fighting for human rights. What are some of these people saying to you about this bill? Because I know you were with the Amnesty International Ghana, even though now you are with a different organization. So what are some of the things you've heard around this bill and their feelings towards it?
First of all, the bill goes against every international standard that Ghana has signed up to. Ghana is, first of all, let's start from our constitution. We've discussed that already. Article 21 is a primary law in our constitution that this bill firmly goes against, especially when it comes to people like myself and other organizations that work in this space. It goes against the cornerstone of our existence as organizations and individuals who work in this space, in the human rights space, not just LGBT, but human rights space. Because we are gagged by this law, it means we shouldn't speak about it. And even the interesting thing about this law is that even amending it or changing it is prohibited. It's a crime. So which law, even the constitution can be amended. How much more this law that seeks to criminalize people for just being who they are and cause no harm? So the first thing is that, one, it goes against our constitution, which is wrong. Is unconstitutional. Secondly, it goes against our things that we signed up in the human rights, regional human rights mechanisms. That's the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, or the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and grants every individual the basic rights that are granted in the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. So that one is there. Ghana has signed up to be, if you look at Article 35 of the African, the protocol that sets up the African Charter, the African Court on Human and People's Rights, Ghana has subscribed to the court, and therefore, if anybody tries to infringe on the rights of these people, they have an opportunity to go to the African Court on Human and People's Rights to seek redress. I mean, there are protocols and processes that this law must go through. Once we exhaust local remedy in Ghana and we see that there's no way we can fight, ensure that these rights that are being infringed upon are still there, international organizations and individuals and Ghanaians like myself are thinking about the option of going to the African Court on Human and People's Rights. And so that's the discussion that's ongoing. And then also to understand that the key thing that goes on within the space is ensuring that people are able to express themselves and be themselves. And therefore, international organizations that work in this space, especially HIV programming, will be affected because, of course, a lot of the money that is used on HIV programming in Ghana is not Ghana funding. It is global fund. And if you want to subscribe to some of these funding mechanisms, it means that you must be human rights. Now I want people to understand, if people are listening and watching, that you must be human rights compliant. What we are saying is, if you subscribe to some of these funds that our government subscribe to, and we can't fund our own HIV programming in Ghana, it means that we infringe on the rights, human rights of these people, including the Article 21 rights that I've mentioned already, and some of the rights in the convention on in the UN conventions. So the UN Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, UN Covenant on political, civil and political rights. All these things are infringed upon in the international scene. And so Ghana is, by this law, saying that we do not respect these rights of these people. Once we go against these rights in these documents that we have signed to that are legally binding, then we get into serious trouble with a lot of the things that we want to do on the international scene. I mean, Ghana pushes itself as the black star of Africa, and then also the human rights compliant country of Africa, amongst even in West Africa and among a lot of African countries. With this law, we are showing that our hypocrisy of showing that we are a human rights compliant country is very clear by putting a law in place that infringes the rights of vulnerable people who cause no harm to anybody.
That means that Ghana has a lot to lose, and also there will be, that if the bill is passed, there's going to be a lot of court cases and also petitions from all over the world. So we'll be right back to discuss more on this issue. This is the Lowdown. My name is Ni Akwe Ismail Akwe. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the Lowdown. My name is Ni Akwe Ismail Akwe. We are speaking with our guest, who is a human rights advocate and former director of Amnesty International Ghana, Robert Akoto Amoafo, who is on Zoom from South Africa. So, Robert, we're talking about some of the things that the country Ghana could face when this bill is passed. And already we are seeing a lot of, dissatisfaction from the international community. Also, some Ghanaians who are fighting for the human rights of everybody, including those of the LGBTQI community. And were you surprised to see all these actors and all these celebrities coming up to fight for the human rights of these communities? And how did you, what was your reaction to also the huge number of people who are against the others who are fighting for their freedoms?
So it's heartwarming to see that celebrities or actors and people like One Love Kobolo, Debbie, and the others are all in support of going against this bill, which is useless and unnecessary. I think basically every human rights loving, humane person who lives in Ghana and believes in protecting one another and believes that any act that somebody does, like how we say in even the so-called quotation that we always put ahead, that our former president in his blessed memory, Ivan Satamels, said, do fear them. So if somebody is doing something in their privacy and it doesn't harm you in any way, somebody is doing advocacy and it doesn't touch you in any way, it doesn't harm the economy, it doesn't cause road accidents, it doesn't cause people to get sick or people not to get beds in hospitals, why won't well-meaning Ghanaians who understand human rights and understand that by protecting one another, by protecting the vulnerable people, we are protecting everybody? So for me, it's a welcoming initiative. It's a good thing that we are seeing. At least it means that people who are pushing this agenda of all Ghanaians do not accept this would realize that it is not true. It is not true that majority of Ghanaians know. How many people have we heard, and why are we pushing this idea? So for me, this shows that they are Ghanaians, even if there are only 5 Ghanaians who do not agree to this bill. I think Parliament and the executive have a responsibility to listen to these 5 people and ask them why and take their ideas into consideration in this process.
I know you'll be keenly following all the proceedings, and you'll be taking notes as well, because you would be doing a lot of advocacy, which is part of the work you do. How do you see this turning out to be? Do you think it's feasible? Do you think, or do you feel threatened? Do you think the community feels threatened at this point? Is this something that will work? Would the bill be passed? Could it be passed or not? Because we ran a poll on Ghana Web, and about 80% want that bill. And a lot of Ghanaians want it. If you look at the comments everywhere, and you are saying that if 5 people are fighting for the rights of a few, it's better, it's heartwarming. Do you feel threatened? Do you think you could lose out on this advocacy?
Though I did not hear clearly, I'll just say that it's, for me, the most important thing is, and I keep stating it again and again, is think about it. If you're a Ghanaian and you're saying, I'm fighting for our culture, how does somebody having sex in their bedroom harm your culture? If you say somebody is advocating for rights of LGBT when they are promoting LGBT rights and therefore it will harm our children, how many children have been harmed by somebody saying that LGBT people have human rights? Everybody's child is their responsibility. And therefore, if you think that your child should not hear this, send your child to a school where they will not teach this. And I think that for using the idea that children should not hear, then we shouldn't watch a lot of pornographic things that are shown in the daytime on TV, because children are not supposed to be hearing and seeing a lot of things that we see in our society, nudity of people who have mental illness on the streets and all of that. So I think that people should rather base their arguments on how the existence of LGBT people, or the fact that people have their sexual orientation, harm them in any way. And that is the most important thing that we should think about. People who try to compare homosexuality to armed robbery, doesn't make logical sense. An armed robber picks a gun and puts it on somebody and demand their thing that they have worked for, or their money, or even kill them. How can you compare this to two adults who are making love and making sex and enjoying it? So for me, I think that we should focus on what matters the most. It doesn't matter if it's only 5 gay people that are in Ghana. Once they are a minority, they need to be protected. In every democracy, what we seek to do is not only to hear the voice of the majority, but also hear the voice of the minority and know where they stand and see how we can support them if what they are doing does not harm us in any way. If you look at what is happening now, it is just some people riding on the popularity of the ignorance of a lot of people, and continually churning out wrong information, misinforming people, and pushing myths about the community they know nothing about, and they have not even met before, and they have not had a conversation with, and they go ahead to make this law. I think if these people mean well, as they have stated in the law that they are providing psychosocial and all those kind of helps that they so-called say they are putting in the law, if they really mean it, they would look for LGBT people and speak with them and understand their situation. I have been in a conversation with a number of members of parliament who were in the presence of a number of LGBT people, and they spoke to them and they told them their truth. So I wonder why some of them are still pushing such a law, and they are part of a team that is pushing such a law. So it's sad that we will not seek to know the people we are making a law for. If we are making a law for children, we push that we ensure that children participate. If we are making a law for women, we ensure that it is women that are passing that law or pushing it.
Okay, so for clarity, did you say we have members of...
leave LGBT people out.
Can you hear me, Robert? Yes, for clarity, did you say members of parliament had already had a meeting with some members of the LGBTQ community?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, I want to know if you just said there was a meeting and you were part of a meeting by members of parliament with LGBT community members. Did you say there was a meeting like that in the past?
Yes. Of course, the discussion on LGBT did not start today. In so many years ago, there have been meetings, there have been presentations where I have made a presentation at a meeting where there were members of parliament and all of that. So for me, it's not new. I think that the only thing is people willing to listen and understand. That is the problem, and appreciate that they may have a different view, and it's not wrong. And I think that is something that we should be clear about. As human rights advocates, we are not saying that members of parliament are wrong and we are right. Nobody is saying by proposing such a law, you are wrong. No, what we are saying is you are not considering the people that you are working with, and you are not looking at the laws that already exist, which already grants these people basic human rights, that if you introduce this law, what you do is you take those rights from them. And that is what we are saying. That nobody is saying that by expressing yourself as a member of parliament or expressing yourself as somebody who do not believe in what LGBT people do, you are wrong. What we are saying is you may have your belief, you may have what you think is right, you may have your culture, your tradition, you may have something you call your Ghanaian culture, your African culture that you as an individual may believe in. But that shouldn't go and infringe on the rights of another person who is privately doing his or her business or talking about an issue that does not bring any harm to anybody, and use it as a means to do a law that would criminalize their existence and gag people from speaking. That is what we are against.
South Africa right now, I know the country is, welcoming of the LGBTQ community, how do they live hand in hand? I mean, how do they live as a community and as a country with the entire, LGBTQ family also part of it?
I mean, if you come to South Africa, as you may be aware, South Africa in the whole world, and that is why sometimes when you talk about gay or LGBT not being African, sometimes you wonder where these other Africans come from. If Ghana is a different Africa, I'm waiting for members of parliament to say, or the religious leaders who are pushing this law to say. But I live in South Africa now. I school in South Africa, and one of the clear things, like I was saying before, is that their constitution is the first in the world. It wasn't US, it wasn't Europe that had the first constitution that recognized sexual orientation, that recognized sexual minorities. It's in an African country called South Africa. And South Africa has, it's in their constitution, not even just the law, it's in their constitution. And people coexist. No culture has been harmed. Zulu people have their culture, they still exist. Tona people have their culture, they still exist. All the so-called culture that these people are talking about, I live in South Africa, and they still live their culture. The Zulu king passed away not long ago. They did their tradition, they buried him, they installed another chief, whatever, all things went on well. Nothing changed. So when people talk about culture and tradition and things like that, it's sad that we don't learn. That is the problem for a lot of us, and especially a lot of our lawmakers and policy makers and our religious leaders, that they don't learn. They travel to a lot of these countries. They travel to these places to have holidays, to have meetings, to have whatever you call it, and they don't learn from what is there. South Africa has it in their constitution. No religion has changed. Christians still go to church. Christians still go do whatever they want to do. Traditional leaders still do whatever tradition they have to do. And so for me, it is the idea of we taking lessons and learning. Rather, if you look at other countries like Uganda and Nigeria that have passed such a similar law, it is rather increasing human rights abuse, increasing withdrawal of funding for the things that we are funded for by other countries and other donors. It is increasing blackmail, violence, and so on. So for me, it's about our country taking lessons from where it is most practical. In South Africa, people live in peace. There is more development here, physical development, and you can see the only challenge in South Africa is the inequality that exists amongst blacks and whites. And that is not even a problem with sexual minorities. So for me,
what do you hope to see
it's a problem,
in Ghana?
Something that we can learn as a country from.
What do you hope to see in Ghana when it comes to rights, human rights, in the next 5 years or even less?
Pardon?
What do you hope to see in Ghana when it comes to human rights in the next few years or even less?
I hope that we learn as a country and we implement the laws we make. We have, Ghana has some of the beautiful laws you can ever think about, but unfortunately they are not implemented because, like this law, there are financial implications. There are a lot of other implications that this law brings, but we are not thinking about it, and therefore we may put this law in place, and it would continue to rather deteriorate us as a country than rather make us better. So for me, for the next 5 years, if this law is not passed, I think it is an opportunity for us to relook at our human rights system in the country and revitalize our commitment as a country to protecting every individual, as our constitution has said. And that funding is given to SHRAJ as a government human rights institution to function properly, that they can have a strategic plan as a human rights body and implement their human rights strategies. The government put money in the domestic violence fund that is supposed to support persons who suffer from domestic violence and build and construct shelters that would help women and children and people who are abused by men, and have a high statistics in Ghana, that they focus on building shelters and providing funding to social workers who do this work and do it well. I also see in the next 5 years, if this law is not passed, and I hope, and I am very hopeful that it does not pass, that that we revitalize our involvement at the Africa regional level in the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. Over the past almost 20 years, Ghana has not reported as expected by the African Commission that we report every year, every 2 years, what the status of human rights in Ghana, and we haven't done it. The Attorney General must take note of that and see that we have human rights obligations internationally and regionally, and we must obey all those human rights obligations that we have as a country.
Okay, so is it fair to say that it wouldn't be right to introduce LGBTQ stories or the entire community in our education system? This is a question that has been lingering, where people say the moment we allow the freedom of the LGBTQ community in Ghana, is going to affect the education system, where children are supposed to be given some education on this community. Do you think it would be fair to say it's not needed in the education system, or you think children should be taught about the LGBTQ community as well?
I think sexual, or already our government and our religious leaders are fighting against comprehensive sexuality education, and I wonder why. And the idea that we should give children some information and leave some out, and then also the idea that by teaching children about sex, it is asking them to have sex. That is wrong. I think this is not really even about the LGBT only, but the idea that the way our religious leaders, traditional leaders make sex look like, they make sex look like it is some monster staying somewhere, that if it pounds on children, it will make them become sex. Rather unfortunate, we see the opposite in the statistics that we're seeing from a lot of the places in Ghana, where children are becoming teenage. We have a high rate of teenage pregnancy in certain areas, especially the central and the Volta region. We are having incidents of adolescent sexual transmitted diseases. This is because we are not educated on these matters. So for me, it is not the matter of LGBT alone. If you talk about sex education, it is every other sexual activity that at an appropriate age, so we should get it right, at an appropriate age where we believe that at the development stage of the child, they are able to make informed decisions on their sexuality and understand what their bodies are doing to them, then we can give them the information that is required at the age where they are required to have it. So even if it includes LGBT, it should be given at a stage where children are able to understand. So at what age do we teach children about vagina and penis? Excuse me, as I'm using this language on your platform, if it's not allowed.
I think they're allowed.
The male sexual organ and the female sexual organ. When do we teach them that there is an insertion of the male sexual organ into the female sexual organ? Where do we teach them that touching this part of your body is sexual? You know, I don't think LGBT people today grew up before they became, as far as studies have shown, and haven't interacted with a number of LGBT people. I don't think LGBT people come up into adulthood before they understand or they take up sexuality. It doesn't happen like that. As you may be aware, at an adolescent age, a lot of young people start discovering things about their body, they start understanding things, they start exploring. So if you want to save someone, what do? You give them information that would save them from harming themselves. Rather than keep information from them, they harm themselves and rather come to find out later about this information.
So you believe children should be given information about sexuality?
Pardon, please go ahead.
You believe children should be given education about sexuality, and general sexuality, including that of the LGBTQ, and you think it will help them to be, I mean, better adults?
Yes, of course. I mean, if a child wants to report to you that even if it is a male child and another male adult has touched this child and the child wants to report, how would they report it if they don't know what that means? If a teacher, and it happens now, schools, let's not forget, if a male teacher touches a male student and he doesn't understand what is going on, how will he report? Let's not create the impression that LGBT is coming to eat up children. Like I've said on several platforms, sex with a child or sexual involvement of a child of any kind is wrong. If we talk about LGBT like this, we normalize male teachers having sex with female students and children. We normalize it by pushing this agenda that it is gay sex that is wrong and heterosexual sex is correct. So if a young girl in school, in secondary school, has a teacher who has sex with them and they know that this is wrong, it is wrong. We should teach it like that, that any sexual activity with you as a child is wrong. Report it.
Okay. So finally, you may be facing about between 6 months and some years of prison time if this law is passed. That's if the law is passed. Is this something that you've thought about? Is it something that is making you plan your return to Ghana? Is this something that will stop you from coming back home if it's passed?
I am coming back. I'm Ghanaian. My family is in Ghana. I've worked in Ghana. My specialty is in Ghana. So obviously I'll be back home. And that is why we are preventing that and ensuring that one thing is clear, that I as an individual have not only worked on LGBT rights. I've worked, if you Google the issue of the witchcraft issue that happened recently, I was on top of the situation. There have been issues that I have spoken vehemently about. I have been top of issues of women, of children, of men, of police violence, of brutality, of human. So it is not about me. It is about human rights for all persons. It's about ensuring that I as a human rights advocate will not stand there and see that LGBT people are being abused by the police, by parliamentarians, by people, and I can't speak about it because I am gagged by a law that limits me from saying, look, by arresting LGBT people and putting them in cells just because of their sexual orientation is wrong, I can be arrested as well and put in the same cell as the gay person. Then that is a big problem. And sometimes I even wonder what some of these lawmakers think about. You arrested somebody who you say is gay, or it's a gay, meaning a male person who has sexual attraction towards the same person which is male. And you arrest the person, go and put the person in the cells where he's going to be with only males for 5 years. I mean, sometimes I wonder if these things are thought through carefully, and whether and looking at the state of our prisons, look at the state of people sleep packed together. You are sending somebody who is internally sexually aroused by men and put them in a packed state with other men. They are going to sleep on the same bed with one man in the same place. And you think that will change the person will come out after the person has come out. It doesn't make sense. So for me, I think that we need to critically think about this and see that as human rights advocates, it's wrong to gag us, because the only people who speak against what government does when it's wrong and be able to speak about it freely is civil society. So if civil society is also gagged and the law criminalizes me as I do my work, then there's a problem, not for only gay people, but in future, it could be for another group of people. We recently saw and I want to bring this on board so that people will understand. We recently saw what was happening between Christians and Muslims. It is not far away from us. It has happened in other countries. It can happen. So we should not talk about this majoritarian process of saying that we are more. Christians are more by our data. Christians are the most recent data I saw, Christians are about 71% of people in Ghana. So and there's a quotation that says, when they came for the socialists, I didn't say anything. Now they will come for me. So I'm just sending it out there. If you're a minority group and they are speaking against a particular minority because of their sexual orientation, and you're not speaking, and you're also speaking against them, get ready. Your time will come.
So are you going to stop your advocacy if the law is passed, or you're going to continue from afar? Because you'll be arrested if you're here.
I'm going to continue doing my work. I think it's important. However way or process that I am supposed to do my work, I will continue to do my work. I will continue to do research, publish research, speak about issues, and continue lobbying and also negotiating and discussing these things at the various levels. You remember that Ghana is not only it's not an island. Ghana is part of a number of international organizations, including the African Union, the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, the UN, and various institutions. So even if I'm not able to speak in Ghana, and remember, Ghana is up for the UPR, Universal Periodic Review, with the Human Rights Council on the UN next year. So even as an advocate, if I'm not able to speak in Ghana, I can speak over there. And that goes against the record of Ghana.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Robert. This was an exciting episode of The Lowdown with our guest, human rights advocate, Robert Akoto Amoafo. Watch us every Monday on all of Ghana Web's digital channels and get interactive. My beautiful clothes were designed and tailored by Anne-Marie Fashion. Give them a call and get yours on 057 0963 796. My name is Ni Akwe Ismail Akwe. Be safe.